Yeah. So, like I said earlier, just doing art is a form of meditation. Um, I am Chinese, so I'm very like into all that stuff. You know, meditation and all that stuff.
Eastern, yeah.
Eastern stuff, right? I'm just having the act of working on one single thing. Like if you look at Japanese artists, they're very focused on what they do. They always say like, "Oh, my craft took 10 years to master for the basics, and then another 10 years to get to the intermediate level, and like another 10 years to become a master," right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically they dedicate their whole life to making stuff. But I just don't think it takes that long. I just think they really enjoy what they do because that culture is very stressful, and just working on one thing, knowing that, oh, okay, this is something I can get my mind off stuff, is really, benefits them. Because they seem like very mindful people.
I know some of their culture, especially like South Korea as well, where it is kind of the grind of, was it 90, 60, 40 or whatever that crazy schedule work is?
It is very stressful. That's why, a lot of office workers seem pretty stressed out. And then you see the craftsmen, they've been working at what they know for such a long time. And they don't seem too stressed out because they just enjoy what they're doing, right?
They have to exist.
Yeah. And then there's like a technique for meditation where you think about one thing only, right? And when your mind drifts off to something else, you're losing that mindful state. Then you just pull yourself back into that thing. So when I meditate, right, if I'm not working on art, I imagine the number 1 in my head, and I just keep thinking about that one. And when my mind goes to something else, like, oh, what I'm going to eat for dinner, or, oh, what I need to do tomorrow, I was like, okay, I'm losing focus. So I start going back to that one, and just keep repeating one in my head, right? Does that make sense? It doesn't have to be one. Like, you can imagine like a water drop, like dropping, drop, right? Or you can imagine just anything, right?
Well, for me, it's shutting down, taking in your senses of where you are right now here. So what am I hearing? What am I tasting? What am I smelling? And then once I'm here, then I'm in here.
Yeah, so that's a little bit more difficult for me, I would say, because you're taking in all the senses, right? You're like, oh, I hear that noise. I hear this smell. My nose smells this, right? And your mind starts to wander everywhere, right? Because it's natural for you to just make connections to stuff, right? Like, oh, I smell like the restaurant down the road, it's like, now I'm hungry. And then you start thinking about fish, right? And then your mind drifts off to like, oh, maybe I want to go to the aquarium in Chicago. So I find it a little difficult to do that kind of form of meditation. So I just pick one thing to think about.
So that way you get the blank slate.
So like, oh, my mind's drifting. So you can pull yourself back. And that's the same thing when I do art. Like when I'm working on these armatures, I'm like, okay, this is my step. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to the next step, right? But yeah, it does help if you're in your midlife crisis, right?
The last one.
Yeah, your last one. Yeah, just finding yourself. It just does help, just like, okay, think about that one thing only. Right. Because we have so much information overload in this current age. It's just kind of stressful, right?
It's all right there.
Yep, all on the phone, all on news, radio, So, maybe that's why it's getting to you. It didn't happen to me. Like, I see all my friends on Instagram, they're like doing this or doing that. Or I see these influencers, they're like, oh, I'm over here, I'm doing this, I'm having so much fun. And I see all these artists too that I really respect, and they're like, oh, look at my art, But sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about working on things and just finding your own pace.
And it could just be an expression of your time here now.
Yeah.
Not to break this line of thought, but I kind of do have 4 main questions, if that's cool.
Yeah, of course.
Who are you?
My name's Kevin. I'm a concept artist. That's basically the most of my introduction here. I lived in San Diego for a little bit before moving back to Missouri. That's about it.
Question number 2 is, where did you most likely or mostly reside between the ages of 7 and 14?
What do you mean by that?
Where did you live whenever you were 7 and 14 primarily?
I lived in Missouri most of my life.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born and raised here. I never really left the country. The furthest I went was Canada, so I don't know too much about like China or where my parents were from. So I can't really say too much about that.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
How do you clip your fingernails and toenails?
How do I clip my fingernails and toenails?
If you do, I don't want to assume.
With nail clippers?
Over the sink? Over a trash bin?
Oh, over a trash bin. Yeah.
Standing up, sitting down?
Sitting down, definitely.
Has this process been the same your entire life?
I would say so, yeah. I kind of got a thing down for that. So,
last one is, what do you give a shit about?
what do I give a shit about? A lot of things, it's okay to give a shit about things, right? Because if you don't care about anything, what's the point, right?
Very true.
So yeah.